Patch 10.13 was really wacky in terms of how Riot approached it. And what's even wackier this week is what some of the Koreans are doing with builds for champions. Quite a few of these are completely poised to be meta changing. So even if you don't play those champions or the roles that those champions are popular in, you should definitely stick around to hear what's going on. Having a better idea of what people are doing in other lanes can help how you play around them, especially in the later stages where you might have something like a TF hitting you with a blue card from 3,000 miles away and all of a sudden you, as a squishy champion, lose half your health. We've got no time to waste, so make sure you click those like and sub buttons because they're blocking your way right now, and let's jump right in. The first champion we're going to take a look at is Volibear, and specifically Volibear in the top lane, and this build is very interesting, and at first, it might seem kinda counterintuitive. Korean players take Volibear top with Press the Attack, Triumph, Tenacity, Last Stand, Nimbus Cloak, and Transcendence, with attack speed adaptive and armor in their minor runes. If you happen to be up against an AP top laner, don't be afraid to switch out to Magic Resist. It can be very helpful. And you need to make the decision whether or not you can actually kill your opponent in lane. Volibear is a melee champion, but he does have a way to gap close with his Q and even a range slow in his E. So if you're ready to beat them into submission, take Flash Ignite and kill them over and over again. Otherwise, Flash Teleport is a very solid thing to take. The items are where things really start getting spicy for you. You rush a Gunblade. And do you happen to know why Gunblade is actually super strong on Volibear? True, it does have a slow in its active, which is very useful. Volibear can definitely use that to catch up to people. But what you might not be thinking about is the amount of disgusting damage ratios in his entire kit. Let me run it down for you. His passive has an AP ratio, his Q has an AD ratio, his W has an AD ratio, his E has an AP ratio, and his R has both. The R is where things really get ridiculous because it has a 250% attack damage ratio and a 125% AP ratio. That means when you buy yourself that Gunblade, your ultimate is instantly doing 200 more damage. As a rank 1 ability, if you're looking at something just purely off of one item, nothing to do with runes, nothing to do with anything else, that does 500 damage, that's really high. Because Gunblade alone boosts Volibear's damage so much, you can actually afford to go straight tank items afterwards and still be a very good damage threat. Once you get that Gunblade, make sure you pick up defensive boots depending on what the enemy team is throwing your way, then a Deadman's, Spirit Visage, Thornmail, and Warmogs. Volibear has health ratios as well, so this is always very good for him no matter what you're doing. It gives you a solid amount of health, extra healing, good utility, and of course the ability to regenerate a ton. The second champion we're going to take a look at is also in the top lane, and really a big throwback. Many of you players who have been around for a while might remember Shyvanna top back in the day. Teleport Ignite, showdown against the Hecarim who also had Teleport Ignite. Now that was an interesting time for League of Legends. Things have definitely changed a little bit, but they still kind of remain there in spirit. You want to take Conqueror with Triumph, Tenacity, Last Stand, Taste of Blood, and Ravenous Hunter, with attack speed and double defensive runes, switching between armor and MR depending on your lane matchup. Summoner spells are usually Flash Teleport, but people are still taking Teleport Ignite, and Teleport Ignite is a very aggressive setup, so be careful. You will be vulnerable to ganks, but you are very strong and can potentially 2v1. At that point, it's all on you and your mechanics, but your build is definitely going to help out, because these players in Korea rush a Death Stance, followed by defensive boots and then a Spirit Visage. They are itemizing for a ton of survivability while still having very respectable damage. And part of what carries it is Shyvanna's dragon form being so insane and her percentage health damage on her E. A good rule of thumb to follow when you're playing Shyvanna is if you miss your E, just don't fight. It's not a good idea. Once you've got your 2 core items and your boots down, from there, you're itemizing mostly defense. Deadman's is bought pretty often as Shyvanna is prone to being kited and the extra mobility does help her out quite a bit, but you can go Thornmail if there's a lot of people on the enemy team who have really annoying healing. After that, you can get Wit's End to further your on-hit damage and make you more tanky, as well as wrapping up your build with Asterix for a massive health shield. Now, I have a disclaimer before we get into the next build. This build is not a build that was invented in Korea, but it is gaining traction there and people are building it. Shout out to Charismai for coming up with this one a couple weeks ago. You are playing Kayn, and Kayn is a very flexible champion. Depending on whether you're going for red Kayn or blue Kayn in a specific game, you change up your runes. However, this build specifically has more success with blue Kayn. So you're going to be taking Dark Harvest with Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, Relentless Hunter, Nimbus Cloak, and Gathering Storm with double adaptive and armor. Kayn is one of those junglers who doesn't actually need attack speed in his clear because his Q AoE is so insane. But you know what's even more insane? When you follow up your Q AoE with a Tiamat proc AoE and instantly clear most camps. Now, alright, you got me. Instantly is a little bit generous, but having a Tiamat on Kayn is very, very strong for multiple reasons. He clears extremely quickly, and augmenting that clear even more can cause him to have a massive level difference compared to his opponent. Tiamat isn't just for killing jungle monsters though, it's also good in a fight. You can use your Tiamat after you use your Q on Kayn for a really slick and smooth feeling combo that fits right into everything else naturally. This can proc runes as well, like Dark Harvest or even Conqueror, allowing you to cycle through things faster and deal more damage in a tighter period of time. There's a lot of upsides to rushing Tiamat on Kayn, but from there, you're going mostly, let's call it standard. You're going for a Warriors and then Moby Boots, with Yumu's and then Edge of Night. Kayn is a champion who also likes to be very sneaky, so going in Umbral Glaive after that to deny enemy vision and move around without worrying about being seen by wards is very, very big. And then lastly, the only thing you're really going to have problem with is when the enemy team gets armor, and that's why Lord Dominic's Regards is most of the time the best option for the last slot. Don't be afraid to switch it out for a Mortal Reminder though, if you know the enemy is going to have a ton of healing. Being able to adapt your items like that, no matter what slot you're trying to fit it into, is very important and a great skill to learn. That's the sort of thing that we could teach you on our website, GameLeap.com, where we have tons of guides that are all made by Challenger level players. And whether you're looking for a guide on a champion's runes and itemizations or how to execute their combos correctly, we have something up there for you. And things aren't limited to champions either. We have generic guides that cover broader topics and even just stuff that covers lanes and techniques to get you ahead of your enemy. It's the obvious choice to make if you're looking to learn more, improve, and win your games. So we covered Volley, Shiv, and Kayn, 2 champions in the top lane and 1 in the jungle. And we've also got 1 more coming to you for the jungle in Ekko. Now this build is a bit wacky at first. On Ekko Jungle, Korean players are taking Omni Stone, Magical Footwear, Futures Market, Cosmic Insight, Eyeball Collection, and Ravenous Hunter with attack speed, adaptive, and armor in their minor runes. Since you're jungling, of course you're going to want to take Flash and Smite. But hold on though, we gotta rewind and unpack what just went on in the rune page, because right now you might be saying, what in the world are you talking about, Ace? And I understand, Omni Stone can seem pretty troll, and while some people have used it, it's not really even the best most of the time. Ekko though, and specifically Ekko in the jungle, is a bit of an exception. If you haven't even played Ekko, you've definitely played against him at some point in time. He's a very popular champion and has been strong for a while. He's not super amazing right now, but he's definitely up there. Let's start a bit of a checklist. When was the last time that Ekko tried to burst you out in a team fight? When was the last time you got into an extended duel with an Ekko? When was the last time an Ekko stunned somebody? Now, we're not going to keep going because I'm not going to cover every single rune, that would just be dumb. But you get the idea. Ekko can literally use any rune. Press the Attack is actually decent on him, Conqueror is good and was used in the past, Lethal Tempo has synergy with his on hits thanks to his passive and his W, same thing with Halo Blades. Dark Harvest is one of the runes that used to be taken on him, same thing for Electrocute. Airy poke damage is definitely useful, same thing with Comet, and at the end of the day, Phase Rush definitely isn't hurting an Ekko player, even though he already runs at Mach 25. Aftershock is Aftershock, and it turns most champions into unkillable memes. And really, the only ones that are pretty meh are Glacial Augment, Grasp, and Predator, because Predator's kinda underwhelming since the damage was nerfed. So Ekko can use all these individually, but don't forget, Omni Stone has a 5-second cooldown between keystone uses. So when you, as Ekko, jump on top of somebody with the Electrocute that you just rolled into, burst them, and kite them since you have a ton of movement speed from your passive, you wait another couple seconds to re-engage on top of them, or the entire time you're just beating their head in with your baseball bat, and then hey, you get a Dark Harvest. Cool, extra damage in the fight. And that's just one small example of what can happen. You're probably not going to be surprised to hear that the items don't really change here. You're still playing full AP, high damage Ekko. You go for the Runic Echoes with Sork Shoes, followed by a Protobelt and then a Lichbane with a Zhonya's and a Rabadon's. This gives you a nice blend of cooldown reduction, utility, super high damage and burst, and the ability to get out of bad situations. Next up, let's talk about Fiddlesticks, or should I say Tanksticks, because this build is really funny, and people have already seen it debuted in pro play actually. This build is taking Fiddlesticks in mid and top lane with Flash and Teleport with a completely defensive setup, taking Aftershock, Demolish, Conditioning, Revitalize, Mana Flow, and Transcendence with double adaptive and armor or MR depending on the matchup. From there, you want to rush a Frozen Heart if you can, or a Spirit Visage if you're up against a lot of AP, followed by defensive boots and then whichever one you didn't get first. This sets you up with a very tanky champion who has a ton of healing and sustain, who has good base damage as well as CC. Then you have 40% cooldown reduction once you hit level 10, and on top of that, a lot of your damage is AoE, so you will have synergies with items that are sort of off damage items, like Liandry's, which you can build later on after you've tanked up. Once you've got your core items, you can go into Azanya's, as it can be a last minute defensive tool that saves Fiddlestick's life. From there, Liandry's, like I said, is very solid and can allow you to burn through your enemies without really building damage thanks to the max HP damage that Liandry's offers you. And lastly, if you're up against other people who like to heal and they auto attack, Thornmail is an excellent option. If you play this build properly, there is almost no scenario in which you can die, and a lot of the times you'll find that you can actually 2v1 people, because you're so hard to kill that you sit there and suck them dry until they die. Tanksticks is pretty memes, and it's hilarious to see people in front of you trying to bash your head in, but they simply can't do enough damage, and you laugh in their face as you make their health bar yours. The last two champions we're going to cover here are mid lane champions, but you're definitely going to be caught off guard by this one. Karma mid lane is making a comeback, but not in the way that you might think. Not that full AP, rush Eludence, and be absolutely irritating Karma. While that definitely is still good, it's not as great because she got some nerfs in that regard. But Karma can still pump out a lot of damage while having a ton of utility, and her utility is often what allows her to win 1v1s against people that you would least expect her to. The crazy thing is that despite all the nerfs, Karma doesn't even need a damage keystone in order to win fights. These Korean players are playing Karma mid with Summoner's Spellbook, Magical Footwear, Minion Dematerializer, Cosmic Insight, Nimbus Cloak, and Transcendence, with attack speed, adaptive, and armor, or MR depending on their matchup in their minor runes. And of course, since Karma doesn't actually need damage, why would she need Ignite? Take Flash and Teleport, and you're playing to be all around the map, oppressing the enemy team everywhere you can. Karma wins 1v1s by simply outvaluing her opponent. She has CC, she has very good damage, but it is only on one ability. She makes up for that by having a self shield that gives her movement speed. Because you have a shield and a way to heal yourself with your R and W, you can just build a little bit of resistances and then become incredibly hard to kill. That's why they rush and Athenes even in the mid lane. They might not be able to support people every single time they use their shield, but it's built up for the fight that matters when she's taking 2v2s and other team fights, and when you find yourself in these scenarios, you're gonna be noticing how your damage translates into you healing your allies at the same time. After that, you want to go Sorc Shoes because your goal is still to do magic damage, and then follow that up with an Ardent Sensor. Remember, Ardent Sensor also buffs you as long as you're shielding somebody else, so you still benefit from the damage and the attack speed. The real question mark ping comes in getting a Rabadon's as a third item, and that might seem a bit odd, but keep in mind, Karma's AP ratios are actually spectacular. Whenever you use your ulti to empower an ability, you're looking at ability power ratios of well above 90% on anything. So the only thing that's gating you is your R cooldown, which is why the attack speed from Ardent in order to reduce that cooldown is so important. Just buy that Rabadon's third and start melting faces off. And from there, it's all utility and damage. Zanya's for the cooldown reduction, resistances that we talked about earlier, and of course, the golden Rolex move. From there, Liandry's as a last item is spectacular, as many times Karma isn't caring about what tanks do to her. She can simply press R and then W on them and gain basically all the health she lost back. And in case somehow, despite all of these strengths, you're running into something that you still can't deal with, that's where the Summoner Spellbook comes in handy. Swap to an Exhaust, grab yourself an Ignite, maybe a Barrier or a Heal, why not? Any of these can be super useful in a fight and make you almost unstoppable. The last champion to be put in a spotlight as a Korean build is going to be Twisted Fate. You know, the champion that Dopa is famous for, one of the best League of Legends players to ever play solo queue? Yeah, that guy. This build is actually directly from him. You take Summoner Spellbook, kind of like Karma Mid that we just talked about, and then grab yourself Magical Footwear with Biscuits, Time Warp Tonic, Nimbus Cloak, and Transcendence, with attack speed adaptive and either armor or MR depending on what you need. And your Summoner spells should be Flash and Ghost. Before we keep going, I will say that there is a variant of this rune build where you simply take Omnistone. TF can use a lot of the runes that come from Omnistone, a lot like Ekko could earlier, and because of that, it is viable in situations where having different summoner spells doesn't really help you. This will happen in cases where you're often not going to be able to 1v1 people on the enemy team because they have too many tools to beat you. Whether it be getting out range, getting absolutely demolished by being bursted, or simply out DPS'd and out healed, these are some of the problems that TF mid can have that get solved by Omnistone that kinda changes how he plays. The item builds don't stop the spiciness there, let me tell you right now. This is a very specific build path that you want to follow every single time. You want to get a Hextech Revolver as soon as you possibly can, followed up with a Sheen. This causes your basic attacks in lane, especially when both of them are up, to be absolutely catastrophic to anybody's health bar. If you lock a blue card with this build when you have both Revolver and Sheen, and you throw that thing at anybody who has anything but defensive items, they're gonna lose about a third of their health. If unfortunately you have to gold card them because it's not a great matchup and you don't get to abuse the range and damage you have, that's okay too, because you just follow up with the other damage in your queue. From there, you want to transition into finishing a Triforce and then Sorc Shoes or defensive boots depending on what you're looking to do. Many times in this build, you're looking to outlast the enemy, which is why defensive boots are an important option that you need to consider. Once you've got your Triforce and your boots settled out, what do you do with that Hextech Revolver? Much like the case with the defensive boots, you got options, and that's what TF's all about, having options, just like that Karma Mid. So you can choose to go Gunblade if you're looking to carry and have a bunch of Omnivamp from your damage that is very impressive. But if you're looking to control the enemy team, play a secondary carry role because there's somebody who's more important, you could go a GLP and start slowing and controlling the battlefield with it. After that, Zhonya's is an amazing item as it offers you defensive stats and one of the best defensive actives in the game. After that, you get Rapid Fire Cannon if you're looking to be a gold card machine. However, if you're looking to split push, you might want to go for a Blade of the Ruined King instead for more shred and more damage. Last item, you have the option to go a Wit's End or a Rapid Fire Cannon, whichever one you need for the situation you're in. And with that, we've wrapped up all of our new Korean builds for patch 10.13. And if you're looking to learn the champions who we covered in this video, or just get better at League, which I mean, hey, who doesn't, make sure you go check out our website, GameLeap.com. We have tons of guides up there that are all made by challenger level players on just about any topic you could ever need. If you're looking for champion specific stuff, got you covered. Macro, absolutely, that's one of the most important things in the game. Fundamental skills that you need to practice, lane specific guides, yeah, those are there too. You're not going to be able to find guides that get to go super in depth like we can on our website. And of course, it's the best thing that you can do if you're looking to learn, improve, and win your games. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching the whole video. What do you guys think about these Korean builds? It seems like Summoner Spellbook is making a comeback, as well as some people flexing their Omnistone power. It's kinda cool to see both melee and ranged champs make use of these runes, and we'll have to see how the game evolves over the next patches, of course. But anyways, as always, my name is Ace Windstorm, and I will see you all later.